practitioner? And do any of you have any ideas before I start chatting? Well, the very same man that introduced me to the reading, which was called I Am There, by James Freeman, told me 30 years ago, approximately, that you, Greg, are a truth student. So I would tell you, anybody that's in this room or drawn to this teaching, whether you know it or not, are most likely a truth student. So what is a truth student? What's a practitioner? Well, it's not that complicated. A truth student is dedicated to living and practicing the truth. A practitioner, likewise, is here to practice. So, and then you might say, well, what is he talking about? Like the reading that we just read would suggest that this presence, this power that we talk about is everywhere present. It's omnipresent. Someone once corrected me and said, don't say Greg, it's omnipresent. Say it is the omnipresence. You know, it's active, it's a verb, it's everywhere present. And the thing to understand in this teaching is you realize that if it's everywhere present, it has to be a part of who? It's got to be a part of you. In basic religious science years ago, they taught me there's not a spot, it's a little saying, there's not a spot where God is not. So this presence, this omnipresence is in you, operating through you. Now you might not think that that is so. You may feel that it's separate from you. You may have been trained to think that you have to pray to something that's outside of you. I know I was. I was trained to think that I needed to, get on my knees and pray and ask for help and implore God to save me sometimes. And, I used to bargain with the force. I will get better, I will do more, I will never, never, never do certain things again. It was, as Bill Tolliver, one of my teachers years ago, who used to be at Fort Lauderdale, he said, many of you think of this God figure as a cosmic bellhop. A bellhop is the person who runs the elevators. You press the button and, hopefully he, or usually it was a he in those days, it's going to take you where you want to go, or you're going to pray to it. Well, a practitioner or a truth student doesn't really do much of that. It doesn't do any of that. We practice knowing that the presence of God is everywhere. There's nothing you can think of, there's no place you can go, there's no journey you can take, there's nothing you can imagine that doesn't contain it. And it is a part of you. And as practitioners, we understand that this universe is responding to you. Ernest Holmes said there's power for good greater than you, of which you are a part, and he said you can use it. We teach religious science to kids in a way that's very powerful. I talk about it probably more often than some of you would like. I do so because it's just such a simple idea. They ask the kids to imagine that there's this fantastic stagecoach that's all made out of, say, black leather, and it's rich and luxurious and sumptuous, and inside of it there's comfort, and this is where we go. And outside of the stagecoach there's the platform, and in front of it there's a team of stallions representing the most powerful horses that there are. What we tend to do is we tend to stay inside of the coach where it's comfortable. But the invitation for a practitioner and a practitioner of religious science, a truth student, is to get out of the comfort zone of the coach in which you reside and to get up on the platform and take the reins and use the power that's right in front of you that will take you every place and any place that you could ever want to go. Now, in that image, they also describe what happens when you don't use your executive power. When you stay inside your comfort zone, you want to take those in that beautiful coach, and you want to take down the window shades and all of that and not see and not look. Perhaps be in denial. Well, those very thoughts that are going on within you inside that beautiful chamber are driving your life. So that's how it works. What happens is your thoughts, your secret thoughts, your innermost beliefs move the coach forward. And they may bring you to some very interesting places they already have. Now, I know some of you well, and I know myself. I've had some exciting challenges in my life, and they have come from my beliefs and my thoughts and my ideas. And in religious science, we're challenged to trade in the lesser idea for the greater. That's what we do here. Nobody here is ever going to be found by me right or wrong, because we don't do that here either. What we talk about here and we teach here is consciousness. Okay, so if I've had some thinking and thoughts that have been a certain way for a long time, they are now reflected in my life. And we can't, as truth students, be caught up in the blame game, because that's not what we do here either. If you look at your life is a reflection of you, your knowingness. And as Louise Hay would say, as Oprah would say, as many would say, you know, there's always more that we can realize. So we look to our life and we say, okay, look what I have created. You know, look at my life. You know, and it's really instructive, because now it becomes a far more interesting proposition. Because now I can't look at my life and say, well, it's about my mother, or about the person I'm living with. It's never going to be about them. Okay? It's always going to be more interesting to see, well, okay, I have created these people to be. And then if they are like less than perfect, and they've been horrible, and they've been all the things that you would say, you know, if the facts of your life suggest a lot of things have happened, the more interesting question is, well, what are you doing about those things? If you're talking about them perpetually as being the issue, the more interesting question is, what are you doing to take care of yourself? So our teaching is always going to be about bringing whatever it is back to ourselves, right? And what we're creating. Okay, because we are the one that's moving our own lives forward, always. It's always going to be about us. There's an expression, in truth, there's no thing, nothing outside of you. And that's a tough lesson, and it's a great lesson. It's emancipating, it's fabulous, it's fantastic. In truth, there's nothing outside of you. You get to create it. You remember Shakespeare writing the very same idea. When was Shakespeare living? 1500s or something? I can't remember. All the world is what? Okay, and you're writing the story. And you're assigning the roles: angel, lover, beautiful, demon, court jester. You're assigning all their roles, and you're also assigning their entrances. You come in Act 2, you are gone in Act 3. You know, you have power, and you're assigning them everything. And yet, what do we do with all of our creations? We forget that they are our what? Creations. We forget that they're there by invitation. You know, all these folks that are populating our life, on some level, you know, you're in a relationship with. And so as practitioners, we know that there is no separation in the mind of God. As practitioners, we know that we're one with everybody. So when something is in your life, please don't say, oh, poor me, and ain't it awful. That dog don't hunt here. Okay? You know what I mean by that? You know, years ago they said, you know, do you choose to be a victim or are you a volunteer? I mean, I may not like things that are in my life. I've had some interesting challenges just this week, which I won't go into right now. But I can't, as a practitioner here, be caught up in that whole phenomena of making it about them. Okay? If something that comes up that's distasteful or unpleasant, then I acknowledge, okay, this is a fact. I don't like it. I need to do something about it. Okay? We have classes. The classes that we have weekly are very, very helpful. And the classes are about taking responsibility for our life. Nobody suggests in these classes that anybody is to blame. for anything. Because in classes, you'll hear people, they will argue some of the points. I didn't do this, I'm not responsible. I didn't do this, and that will happen in a class. And when we use the word responsibility here, we're never talking about blame. Okay? It's just if you keep allowing a certain condition in your life to keep on happening, there's an expression, what you will allow will continue. Okay? You have the ability to say no, not now. You have the ability to set boundaries. You have power to use. And what we don't support each other in, we'll listen to you, but we don't support you in a story. Because any story that you're circulating endlessly and forever, which is really a way for you to just stay stuck, nobody here supports that. What we do support is your involvement, your growth towards joy and happiness and peace. From the Course in Miracles, a beautiful line. The peace of God is my goal, my one goal. My purpose, my function in my life. Now, what would you put ahead of that? You're here to express joy and have fun. And I run support group after support group, week after week. I did so yesterday. And my act. I ask people, what's it like being you lately? Why do I ask that question? Why can you imagine I would ask that question week after week? I can't go into a group and tell them. You can't give them consciousness, for starters. They have what they have. But what you can do with people is you can ask questions that cause them to think, like, what is it like being you? And is it expansive? Does it feel fun to be you most of the time? I mean, if it does, that's great. But if it doesn't, then it's not that you're bad. You're not bad. Everybody here is good, right? But if you're really experiencing it energetically, you're feeling low all the time. Okay, so that would suggest that there's some things to do. There's some things to let go of. In other talks we've done recently, Ernest Holmes would say we carry around a lot of dead wood. He would say something else, even worse. We carry around a lot of baggage, and it's not doing us any kind of what? Any kind of good. Okay, so if you know that there's power in the universe greater than you, listen to what the universe is attempting to say to you. I know through all my reading of Ralph Waldo Emerson, the most beautiful thing I think he said, and he said many, many beautiful things, is that the universe is always wooing you. And by that I mean, in your deepest of hearts, when you're off track and you know that something isn't right, you know that something isn't right. You can feel it, you can sense it. And when you have moments of inspiration that, hey, I ought to do something different, pay attention to that, because whatever is in your soul, the spirit that's moving you forward, it is attempting to get your attention. Honor that. Don't tell yourself stuff is okay when stuff is not okay. Because we make lots of compromises, and I promise you there's nobody holding you back except yourself. I mean, you're meant to thrive. You're meant to be the light of the world. That was the gift of Unity Church years ago when I started teaching there and teaching the Louise Hay classes there. The gift of the Unity movement is they took Christ out of being the Savior to mankind to being an example. Unity teaches Jesus would say, it's not me that doeth these things, but the Spirit within the Father within, and these things and greater everyone in this room has. There's power for good in the universe, Holmes taught, greater than you, of which you are part, and you can use it. You are using it. Like that beautiful poem that we read this morning. It's operating through you as you, it is there when you think it's there when you don't think it's there, it's responding to you endlessly and always, because that is what it does, that's what it has to do. It says yes to you, it affirms you on every level. So you sit in your seats, as beings with tremendous power. So what is a truth student? A truth student is a person who is aligning him or herself with the truth of their being. Aligning themselves with you exist as pure potential, power. You have ability to do great things in the world. And sometimes we sell ourselves out real cheap. We tell ourselves a bunch of fibs. We say we're no good, not good enough. We look to our history. We look to our story. That's the his story. And we define ourselves by what we've done. We feel bad about ourselves by what we've done. As Louise Hay would say, the bottom line for almost everyone she's ever talked to and counseled is they don't feel adequate in some way. I'm not smart enough, good enough, too young, too short, too fat, lots of judgments. And we're, so we carry, that's the baggage, the story, and it's generally not good. I would love to know a few of you who just think that you're great and you're committed to seeing life as a beautiful thing. Ernest Holmes, in one of his most beautiful talks, I think it could have been an excerpt from his last talk, The Silmer at the Sea, said something to the effect of, find me 100 people who are for something and against nothing. And they will be the redeemer of my soul, the person I will want to walk with and be with. If you are a truth student, you are all about practicing the truth. Said to me 30 years ago by Bill Tolliver, or maybe 25, he said, we are here to be the applauders of life. We are here to be the lifters, the encouragers. Wherever you see a child or a person or a friend who's just making a step forward, we're here to be the champions of that. God knows we're not here to be critics, right? A great man taught me at Unity too, Bill Cameron many years ago. He said, I went to school and I studied psychology, Greg. And he said, I liked it a lot. And then I took abnormal psychology and I got a master's degree. And he said, I got really good at saying what was wrong with people. He said, how screwed up they are. He said, I was going to study, get a PhD in figuring out, the human mind and what's wrong with people. And he says, I wasn't liking how I was feeling, though. And he said, I had an epiphany one day. And I said, what was that? He says, I realized that I was doing the whole process backwards. He says, it's almost like I had a blinding light. He says, it caused me to go into the ministry. He says, because anybody can, analysis is literally meaning to tear things apart. He says, my focus of my ministry turned through my study of psychology because I really wanted to see the wholeness and the goodness and to build on that in all my encounters. Because if I'm looking for problems in people, I'm going to see problems in people. So if you're attempting to practice this teaching, you do not need, Leslie put my diploma up here today. She must have pulled it out of a closet somewhere. And I think she did because it's signed by Louise Hay, who has been very generous to me over the years because I've been teaching classes of her teachings every year for at least 20 some odd years. If you're going to be a practitioner, you begin wherever you are. That is the message of Louise Hay. She'll say it's like cleaning the house that's a mess. You just start wherever you are. So that's what a truth student is. That's what a practitioner is. We're committed to seeing the good. And seeing the good where? Everywhere and often. Okay, so I've had students over the years who have challenged me and they've said, Greg, get real. And I can remember the faces of them because some people have really had some tough stuff. I mean, and by that I mean there's been issues that have gone on with their children, and there's been everything from incest to abuse to addiction to everything that's pretty horrible I've heard. And nobody here is going to say any of that stuff is good, right? At least of all me. But the thing is, if you're coming to me or you're coming to one another with something that's happened to you in the distant past, we'll listen to it, right? But what do you want to do with it? What I want to know. Do you want to have your past continually hold you back? I mean, I'm a trained addiction counselor, right? And I know all, don't know everything, but I mean, I know a lot about family of origin stuff, and I know a lot of people keep living out what happened to them from their childhood into their adult life over and over and over again. And nobody here in this room is going to make anybody wrong. But the thing is, there comes a point in your life where you really want to move forward, I think. At least I did. You know, if you keep creating out of an old role, then you're going to keep creating out of an old role. And so here's the challenge. If you want to go forward, you want to step out of the past. And you want to see yourself as a child of God with all the power available to you in the world. So I guess today, in conclusion, I want you to understand all the power in the universe is available to you, right here and right now. The question is, are you going to use the power? And I'm going to tell you something else. I think I already said it. And the poem indicated it too. The power that's going on in the world, you're using it anyway. I had a practitioner I've shared before, Mary Curewitz in Boca, when I was a young man, said to me, Greg, you were the child of a lesser God. And you prayed to this lesser God, and sometimes this God answered your prayers. Most often, nothing happened when I prayed. And I thought I wasn't good enough. I had to pray harder. And then if I did better and I prayed harder and all of that, then maybe my prayers would what? The answer. And she smiled at me. She said to me, here's the thing, Greg. She said, for you to understand, that the universe so absolutely loves you, loves all of you. The universe so loves you that it responds to your every thought. It doesn't miss a single one. Every thought you think, it gets. It gets you, as the kids say of this generation. The universe not only gets you, your thoughts are acted upon, and it says yes to you. The universe says yes to what you believe, and it plays out in your life. And then, if you don't like what's playing out in your life, you will have moments of inspiration where you'll get another opportunity to do what? To change. Ralph Waldo Emerson so eloquently and beautifully said, there is a corrective principle always in operation in your life. And so, it's playing out according to what you believe. And if you don't like what's showing up, you're going to have some divine discontent. You're going to have some inspiration. You're going to have an opportunity then to do what with it? To rethink it. If you want your life to evolve exponentially and spiritually, and so you can have some fun and joy and peace and contentment, then this teaching is going to be a teaching for you. Because this is not a teaching where you hide out. This is not a teaching where you get on your knees and pray to a God above. This is a teaching about you working with the most important person in your world, right? And realizing how great thou art. And when you're centered in the greatness and the goodness of what you are, then you become you become something to be reckoned with. Because you're going to affect change not only in your life, but in everybody you touch.